everyone. Welcome to day 4 of our series on how different ways in which you can leverage virtual communities to have a positive outcome for learners at your institution. So congratulations to anybody who's made it through all 4 days, and welcome to any new faces that we have. I'm actually going to try and keep today's session a little shorter. So we're aiming for sort of 30 to 40 minutes, partly just because it's Friday. And also I'm getting the sense, I'm sure people are tired of hearing me talk. But we've looked at the platform a lot. I know if we have some new faces, I want to make sure that you get a good view of the platform. So we will jump in and do a bit of a demo. But we'll focus more on the context of the community and the opportunity today as we talk about the application of digital communities for career readiness and how we think about setting students up for success, not just while they're in school, but after they leave. So as I mentioned, this is our 4th session. Just for those of you who weren't here, our first day we talked about peer connection, so just really building communities that are just for students to talk to one another. Then we focused on a student success use case where we start to think about how coaches and advisors can leverage digital communities to build stronger relationships with the students they support. Yesterday, we took the community to the classroom and thought about ways in which faculty, TAs, tutors can leverage community to create more scalable, more peer-to-peer driven support experiences. And today we're going to talk about career. And as part of career, we are going to talk a little bit more about the opportunity to bring people outside of your formal institution into the community as well. So when you think about your community as an organization, it's not just the people, the students that are on that are enrolled at the moment, your staff and faculty, it's also your alumni, it's the employers that you think about and work with. So one of the cool things about Inscribe is it really allows you to extend your concept of community to welcome in people that might not be, part of that formal environment at the moment. That's true of all the use cases, but it's particularly relevant, I think, when it comes to career and reaching out beyond the boundaries of the institution. So once again, I'm Katie Kapler, co-founder and CEO here at Inscribe. I am joined again by Danielle Bonner, who is going to help keep us on track today. She's mostly going to help facilitate the Q&A process. So there is a chat. Please post your questions in the chat. Let us know. Danielle's also been doing this a long time. And so even if you don't think of the questions, she generally knows what the common questions are that we get. So she'll also feed those to me to make sure I don't miss anything. And then a couple of folks that are not live with us today, but you might be hearing from are Fred Knox, Director of Sales. Fred Scott, Director of Sales, and Aaron Knox, Chief Revenue Officer. They will be doing a lot of the follow-up, make sure that you get all the recordings of all the sessions that we've completed. And if you have questions about community at your own institution, they're a great resource to lean on. We are recording the session today, so that'll come out. All 4 recordings will come out end of the day today or Monday morning. So you'll have access to the full sequence, the full series. So Inscribe is, we're going to talk about community generally, but we're going to look at Inscribe specifically and how our virtual community platform can be used in this way. So we're a virtual space. We create a sort of on-demand location for students to go and connect with their peers and other members of your institution. And it's really about helping them solve problems, build relationships, establish a stronger connection and sense of belonging with your institution, all with a mission of helping improve outcomes for those learners over time. So we know that if we can help people feel more connected, if we can help people feel more empowered, they are more likely to be successful in their learning journey. So a couple of things in terms of, why are we here? Why do we think that this particular topic is an important one to cover? So career readiness is relevant to all students. And we're going to talk in a second about some of the things that you probably already know in terms of opportunities and limitations in that space. It is particularly important for our non-traditional, to think intentionally about this for our non-traditional students. You can see here some of the characteristics that make up those learners. They're actually 75% of the students in our country are considered non-traditional in some form. But the reason that I tend to think about them particularly is because a lot of the things, the sort of foundations that you might have, there's 2 reasons. One is a lot of the foundations you might have for career success, like your parents were in that career, or you have a broad network of people that you can go and talk to. Some incoming students, if you're first generation, if you're coming from an underserved community, may not have that foundation and that network to lean on. So it's really important that when they get to university or college, they have the capacity to build that. And so we want to give them the tools that they need to help bring those things to bear. The second is when we think about adult learners or people who are returning to school, they're often doing that because they're interested in some kind of career advancement. And so we want to make sure we're really intentional about tying their education to those aspirations and goals. And there's lots of different ways that universities are doing that through curriculum and, opportunity. And the community model is supplementary, right? It's another way to give those students access to alumni, employers, other students who maybe are on a similar journey to support that mission. So your community is not the only thing that you're going to do in this space, but you'll see how it's a really complementary tool for a lot of the actions that you might already be doing. I forgot to say at the beginning that it would be great for you to introduce yourselves. From the look of the chat number, it sounds like a lot of people are doing that anyway.
We've got
And
that
let us know
happening.
if you've been to all four or how many you've been to this week, because that's a good for us to know. But
Also, just a side note, Katie, I did drop the recordings from the last 3 sessions in here as well. So
okay, thanks, Danielle.
they're in here. If you don't see them because you've just joined, and sometimes the chat is clear when you join in. So if you don't see them, please just let me know and I can send them to you directly.
Awesome. So why is career readiness important? The connection between education and career is different for every learner. Some people are really on that track of I'm at college to get ready for my job, and that is the main focus. That's not necessarily true for everyone, but ultimately, most students are on an education journey because ultimately they want to establish a career that is satisfying and fulfilling and helps them economically be successful for their families. On the other hand, we don't always get that fit right. Employers maybe are not always seeing students coming in with all the skills that they need. Students maybe aren't always seeing the path that they should be on and being prepared early for those conversations. And that can be really anxiety producing. So the number of students who are saying, not really sure how to navigate this, I don't feel like I'm ready to go, I don't even know what questions to ask, can be really high. So what are some things that we can do to reduce that anxiety and create a clearer path for our students to achieve their goals? One of the main components of all of this, and something we're going to talk a lot about today, is social capital. So you can see a definition of that here, and there's various definitions out there, but if we think about it, it's really the network of people that we have built and can rely on to help support us as we explore different opportunities, particularly when it comes to career. Again, when students come into a university, they're going to have various levels of social capital that they bring with them. And in fact, that transition to university or college is going to disrupt your social capital ecosystem automatically. You're potentially moving out of your house, or you're shifting from a world where you knew everybody and you knew who to ask into a new world of brand new people. You don't know who's who, you don't know who to rely on or where to go. So even those people that come in with a strong social capital network are kind of taking a step back and needing to start over. But when we think about students coming in from underserved communities, or maybe who don't have as much experience in higher ed, they are potentially coming in needing to take more steps forward to achieve the same goals. So we always want to make sure that we're creating solutions and opportunities that can help equalize that opportunity for our learners. So even though we're starting at different places, by the time we're done, we've all kind of reached the same level of achievement in terms of this capability. And there is a source in here, and we can share it, but there are a ton of studies out there that tie social capital directly to student outcomes during and after education. So, And the connection between having, and you can see like there's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram, right? About my social capital network, my sense of belonging and connection, my satisfaction with my program. Those are all deeply intertwined. And so altogether, they're going to ultimately impact your students' ability to succeed. But also once they've left you, do they have the foundation they need to go off and get their job and figure out what they want to do? It's not easy to do. I think a lot of institutions are thinking about this and wanting to innovate in this area. You guys can probably share more with us, but some of the things that we hear from institutions in terms of challenges are the career services office is not always the most well-financed organization at the university. That's changing a little bit, I think, but historically, they didn't have a huge budget to work with. Students might not know the career services are available to them, so they are waiting to take advantage of it. It's not necessarily pushed and presented to them early in the process. And then some institutions are just not taking advantage of all of the resources that they have available. So the work is all on the career services office versus really tapping into this broad network of people like alumni or professional industry people that you have a connection with to participate in this process with students. So kind of being isolated, not having a lot of money to fund this has made it difficult to kind of get in front of students early on. Now let's juxtapose that with the value of thinking of like, what if we really could weave career readiness into the conversation with students from the very beginning? You know, we already talked about how anxious students are. Could start to eliminate some of that anxiety, help them feel like, yes, there is a path forward. You're opening up visibility to them in terms of where opportunities are, how to go after those opportunities. They're practicing that early on. So it's not, the stakes are not so high when they get to the end of their degree that they have to figure everything out right away. And that builds your confidence. So our recommendation to schools and what we love seeing is this idea of really introducing the concept of career planning and career readiness into orientation, into the conversations you're having with students as soon as they get on campus, and then normalizing that process for them throughout their education journey. Of course, there's benefits to other people when you think about these models. So if you start career readiness early, if you open it up to a broader set of participants, as an institution, like students love to know that you have these things available to them. That's actually very compelling to them if that's part of the persona and the culture that you're bringing forward. Alumni. I don't know how many people on this call have had a lot of good engagement with their university as an alumni beyond just being asked to donate money periodically. If you ask your alumni to come back and work as mentors or advisors to your students, I guarantee you will have more alumni than you probably need raising their hand and being willing to help. It feels really good to give back. And then we talked about current students, but also don't forget about prospective students. So understanding that this is part of what you offer, maybe even getting access to some of these services and communities, you know, for their first day, once they've been accepted before their first day, is just going to reinforce for them that they made the right choice in coming to be part of your institution.
You know, Katie, I think the one thing we forgot to put on there was employers as well.
Yeah.
Have to
Good
go back.
point. Yes, absolutely. No, that is a great point, because you do hear from employers that even the process of finding great incoming employees and understanding their fit with your organization. And when they come to interview with you, they're prepared and they're ready to go. When they get to participate in spaces like this, it also demystifies that process for them as well, and gives them access to a broader set of qualified candidates that makes their life a little bit easier as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Any questions that you want me to address?
None at this time.
Okay. My throat is getting dry. Okay, so we talked about what a digital community is. think about a digital community in this space as, again, it's going to be complementary to the other things that you're doing on campus. Maybe you have a one-on-one mentorship program, you have career days, you have advisors that are talking to students. So all of that is going to continue to happen. And then you layer on top of that a virtual space that brings all these people together for this many-to-many experience. And that's where students can go to connect not just with each other, but with alumni, with potentially the employers, with your career services offices. It's places where you can promote events that are happening, but it just makes for an always on, always available, one-stop shop. I know where to go when I need to find something. It's also a place that, we talked a lot about this, that we'll create a safe space where students can come and ask questions. And the concept of knowledge repository, I think, is also really useful in this context. So communities are, in some cases, social and transactional. You're asking a question, you're getting an answer. But they're also places where once conversations take place, they can be stored and made reusable over time. So students are learning from each other. They're learning what questions and experiences other students have had. And that is really valuable in reinforcing as a complement to all the wonderful, experts that you have on campus. So once again, your community should be something that can integrate into the tools that you're already using. Of course, we're less relevant here, but your learning management system, your portal, your mobile app, if you have one, make sure that your community can show up where your students already are, because that's really going to be critical for adoption and ongoing health of that space. Okay, so that's just a little preamble. We're going to take a look at an example of a community in Inscribe that is geared toward this career and community model. Danielle, anything I missed that you would like me to touch on?
No, I think you'll talk about who typically moderates this community once you get into the interface. Yeah, let's just get into the interface and then see where it takes us.
Let me make sure my notifications are turned off. There we go. Okay, so we are now in an Inscribe community. This one is around career readiness. Just to note again, the communities are brandable. So we're in the Inscribe University, our colors and branding appear here. This would all be customized to your organization or institution, your brand, your logo, and then of course you can rename the community to whatever makes the most sense for your organization. We did ask it sounds like somebody did ask about moderation. So you probably noticed as we talked about the different community types that moderation really, who's moderating, how much moderation you're doing really varies based on the type of community that you're building. For this type of community, moderation is important. Students are coming to this place and they're happy to talk to each other and talk to alumni, but they want to know that there's sort of an expert voice that's also in the background, keeping an eye on things. Generally speaking, the moderators in these spaces are people from your career services organization, potentially sometimes from your student success organization, but people that have the confidence to know when a student needs a resource or they're looking for an opportunity. This is somebody who would know how to jump in and answer that question. It's not this type of community does not require a particularly large amount of moderation. You will definitely see participation in these spaces kind of up and down depending on the time of year. So a lot of activity really early on, then it will get a little quiet. And then as the semesters start to end and people are looking for internships and other opportunities, it'll come up again. There are things that you can do to continue to drive engagement during those down periods, like posting live events, posting new resources and opportunities for students. And that's kind of some of the stuff that we would talk to you about during implementation, to say, here's some best practices to keep your community healthy. But again, pretty lightweight in terms of the what's required from a moderator standpoint in this space. For a career readiness community, the main goals of this space are going to be to create a navigation that sort of resonates with students about the things that they're most often thinking about or worrying about. So in this case, we do have live events. So let me take a step back. So we're in the community. The community itself is going to be organized by these topic areas. So here we have a live events topic area. we always think that's especially critical in a space like this, that you're mixing the opportunity for asynchronous conversation, which is especially critical for non-traditional students, with some set of live synchronous activities. There don't have to be a ton of them, but are you able to host a little meet and greet with an employer? Are you able to host a Q&A session with one or more of your alumni? It's creating that human face to the process and gives students the opportunity to have a more kind of not one-on-one, but direct conversation with some of these people that have that great knowledge and advice. So if you can, have sort of a consistent drumbeat of live events, maybe one a month or two a month, and advertise them in your community. I'm guessing a lot of you are already doing this. So it's really just about having them in the space and visible to students there. And then it's really about thinking, what are the topics that are going to resonate most with my learners? Here we have an example where it's really framed around the various aspects of things that students think about as they're building their career. So what skills do I need? How do I manage the interview process? How do I go about doing things like networking and job searching? Your students, you may come at it from a slightly different perspective. And so these topics are all fully customizable. So you can come in and say, actually, when we talk to our students, we frame it around these different concepts. Perfect. We can just readjust what's happening in your community to align with your model of thinking. When students come into a space like this, they're probably coming because they have a specific question, right? They might be coming in just to browse around, but more likely they are, something was top of mind for them. They have something coming up and they're wanting to understand specifically how to address it. So you'll see the search feature in a community like this get used a lot. So let's just say, I need to find an internship. So I'm going to type, the student's going to type in internships and the system's going to return all the things that are relevant to them in that space. So, here's somebody else that was already looking for internships, and potentially if you've shared resources with them or valuable information with them, this new student who's also searching for that can find that information right away. So it's a little bit of efficiency for your career team that they've answered a question once, they don't have to answer it a second time. It also is now reinforcing for that student that had that question, like, okay, I'm not the only one looking for an internship. I'm not so far behind, or, other people are trying to figure out how to navigate this as well. And so that's a great way to kind of start to build that. As students answer each other in these spaces, that's where we start to see the opportunity for an extended social capital to come to bear. So Lisa and Kaz may never have met or talked to each other or spoken to each other outside of this platform. But now, because they've started to interact, they're starting to build a relationship with each other. And as they share advice back and forth, they may decide to maintain that connection and carry it with them throughout their time in university and then even beyond. So you're starting to identify people who are thinking about things similarly to you, who are maybe working in the same area as you, and start to build those connections in that network. This is also a great place where you can see that alumni might come into play. So if you're looking for internships and you post that here, one really practical thing is alumni might come in and say, hey, we have some internships available in that space at my company. Would you like some information on how to apply? The other thing that we know alumni will do is if students are thinking about specific careers or careers in specific areas, alumni in that area will often jump in and offer either advice on what courses to take, advice on how to frame up your experience or supplemental experience you might want to look into, offer to do informational interviews or mock interviews with those students, and then of course connect them to potential job opportunities at their institution, at their organization. So it's really natural to see how people who are out in the working world can add a tremendous amount of value for your students in a community like this. And again, now that student has built an important component of social capital that extends beyond the university and out into the world, that will not only strengthen their network, but allow them to have a strong network even once they've left and moved on to something new.
Katie, one thing that and I apologize if you already said this,
Oh.
but one thing that I love about having, the questions visible to many versus just one-on-one with a coach is that sometimes students don't know what to ask, right? I know I find myself in that position where I'm like, I'm not sure what I want to ask. Or if, somebody else asks the question, then I'm like, oh, that's really great. That actually helps me out too. So that is one of the things that I also love about just the having the visibility into what other people are thinking as well.
No, I think that's such a good point. I think that is particularly relevant in spaces like this. As if you're new to the job world or, haven't gone through this process before, I didn't even know what an informational interview was until I was like, somebody had to sit down and explain it to me. So yeah, kind of normalizing that for everybody and helping expose them to things they didn't even realize that they didn't know is a great example of a benefit that you get out of one of these spaces.
We do have a quick question in the chat. So the question says, I think Katie showed us an example of this earlier this week with the algebra example, but I want to make sure that I'm right in thinking that this career readiness community could be linked to and accessible through an existing website or resource like a career center.
Absolutely. In fact, we would insist that you do that to make it. No, seriously though, yes. So if you already have a website or a career readiness tool or platform or something that your students are already using, you can put access points to the community directly in there. So make sure it just shows up for the students when they're thinking about this. I didn't mention it, but we also have a mobile app, so the students can download their community directly onto their phone and just carry it with them. But that doesn't negate the value of having it in these other places as well. So thank you for clarifying and asking that question.
I think it's also important to note that we don't expect our partners, the institutions, to know every single place where they might put it into the student journey, and that our customer success team is really great about helping with those things as well.
Agreed. Yes, we'll help you uncover those and figure out. And it can be something that evolves over time. We didn't talk about this earlier this week, but I think one of the things that makes people anxious about launching a community is they worry that they have to get every single thing perfectly aligned and correct on day one, or it's not going to work. And that could not be further from the truth. When you launch a community, actually, of course, you want to be intentional and you want to think through, what's going to be valuable for your students. But keep it lightweight at first, choose the few things that you think that students are really going to want to talk about and ask about, but you can absolutely evolve that over time. And that means modifying or adding new topics, adding new integration points, adjusting even the branding and the name of the community. Like all of those things can be adjusted over time. And part of what our customer success team will do as they work with you post-implementation is to talk about that. Like, here's where we are today. Here's some opportunities for things we could do in the future. So they're really good at helping you think through that over the long term. One of the other nice features that I know we have already seen in some of the other examples, but is again very relevant here, is the way in which Rosie, who's our technology assistant, kind of keeps an eye on the health of the community. I do think this area of employment and career planning is very anxiety producing for students. And you are likely to get some students who come in and share that anxiety with you through the community. What's nice about that is here's a student who you might not have realized was kind of freaking out or not sure what to do or kind of at a loss for what to do next. But now they've articulated that to you in the community. And then Rosie, because she's running these conversations through a sentiment API, is capturing that and letting you know as a moderator that this student is struggling a little bit, especially if you're part of a team that doesn't have as many staff members and you're managing a large student population. It's really valuable to be able to kind of triage your time and know, okay, Greg is really struggling. He's somebody that needs a direct outreach or somebody to kind of engage with him directly versus, Carly, who's just cruising and doing great and we'll continue to nurture her, but she doesn't need as much time and attention from us. So that's one of the cool things that the community can do for you is help you identify which students really need that high touch intervention to be successful and to feel successful. I know we've talked at length about the different components, so just to touch on them, the conversations area is really where the majority of the activity is going to take place. This is a student-driven area. They're going to be asking questions, sharing advice with each other. And this is where you also start to see the engagement from your broad community. So absolutely, you can jump in and provide an answer, but students can help each other, alumni can come in and help each other. Students who are a little further along in their learning journey might come and help students who are a little bit younger. So you'll see all this really wonderful, personal, authentic advice coming to students, which sometimes can be more valuable, not to hurt anyone's feelings, but than some of the advice that they get from the staff at the university, simply because that student is kind of living the same journey that they're living or worked in the same career that they're interested in. So it's this like, real advice, hands-on advice that they can get that can be really actionable. That also means that as a moderator of the community, you might find in a space like this a lot of opportunities to endorse posts from other students. So as a reminder, if you're a moderator in the community, you carry a little badge with you. So any post you make, the students know that that came from a voice of authority, so to speak. When a student posts that doesn't carry that, but a moderator can come in and endorse that post for them. So it gives that student credit, which is a real feel-good moment for them to say, like, you created a great contribution that is really valuable to a lot of people. That makes them feel good. It makes them more likely to continue to participate in the space. And now it's a visual cue for other students that this was a really good post, something that you might want to prioritize if you're thinking about, where to focus your attention. The resources area in a space like this can also be really useful. I know career teams have tons of short videos, handouts, pamphlets that help students navigate the various components, everything from how to create my resume, to how to think about interviewing, to how do I even decide what career I want to have. When those resources are kind of scattered around, it's hard for students to figure out or remember where to go find them. So just centralizing them in your community will dramatically increase the number of students that use it, and also just create a much better and more satisfying experience for learners because it's all in one place. And then we already touched on the concept of live events, but having these sort of point in time synchronous moments when students can come together and really see and meet people that are doing the things that they want to do. Not all your students will be able to make that, obviously, so you can grab that recorded session, post it back to your community, and now all your students will continue to benefit from that. But the more, again, that you can kind of humanize this process for them, show students people who had a similar background to them and are now doing the things that they really want to do. It's not just about helping them get that job after. Think how motivating that is even during the time that you're at school. That person who maybe was starting to get frustrated or feel like they're giving up, they're going to be reinvigorated to say, I absolutely can do this. And now I can see the path forward. And now I have one more person that I can reach out to who might help encourage me if, times get tough.
Katie, we have a good question in the chat.
Yeah.
Do I have to upload videos or can I link them from the websites our campus already uses?
Yes, you can link them. So you can embed, I don't know if I actually have an example of a video in here, but when you create a new resource, you can create native content in the product. You can absolutely have links to other web pages, and then you can embed videos directly in here. So it'll live in the host platform, but we will embed it on the page so they can play it directly within the Inscribe platform. It also, and we talked about this before, it also creates this opportunity for two-way dialogue. So if I open up a resource, oh, here's a good video. So that's an example. And the student watches this and then has a question on a website, that's just a dead end spot. Or maybe they can go find a ask a question button and then they have to explain to you what they were doing. But here they could come down and ask a follow-up question on this resource. It's automatically tied back to that resource, so you know what they were working on when they asked the question. And it really opens up this dialogue between you and the students around all the great content you've created that helps clarify it for them and actually helps you potentially refine that content over time to make it even more and more valuable. Any other questions?
Well, so talk to us a little bit about the community structure. So based on what I see here on the home screen, this community has been built for all students within an institution. Do you
Ah, yes.
recommend subgroups for like affinity organizations, uh, specific programs? What does community structure really look like in these types of communities?
Yeah, so career readiness is a good example of more the merrier, partly to meaning that it's nice to bring in everybody all together into a shared space. Part of that is what Danielle brought up earlier is some students don't even know what questions to ask. So if you broaden the scope of people that are talking together, you're more likely that they're going to encounter somebody who's asked the question or thought about something in a different way that they hadn't been thinking about it. Depending on the size of your institution, you may want to create smaller spaces for different industry, like sort of that are sort of industry specific. And that will, again, if you have a small school, you don't really need to slice it and dice it that small to allow them to have those conversations. But if it's a really big university, you might see a smaller space around business or around, healthcare and nursing, where you know that you have specific tracks at your institution that are leading to very targeted careers in these different spaces. We don't have it in this particular community, but we do have a concept of channels that can be placed into your communities, which are like subgroups within there. So using channels to create those subdivision keeps everybody in the same space together, but gives people with a shared interest a smaller space to talk to one another.
I
And
imagine
that can be useful.
I imagine if you're bringing employers in, that a subgroup might be a good way to, um, I guess, segment industry with employers.
Yes, if you had like a real specialist focus in that employer, that can be valuable too.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Just a quick note on the community admin area. So as some of you have seen before, this is a place to go and see all the members of your community, what they have been up to, how things are going in the community over time. Again, you really can use this space to identify students who are super active, who are maybe helping other students in a lot of ways. We hear over and over again that institutions will use the data in their community to identify high-performing students and maybe tap them for other things. Like if you do have a one-on-one mentorship program, you have a student that's super active in this community, that student could be a really interesting person to ask to come join as a mentor in a more formal one-on-one modality. You can also see how your alumni are participating. So getting your alumni excited about something, new and a way for them to contribute, and then building on top of that engagement with your alumni in other ways so that they're participating. Maybe they're coming back to take a follow-on degree with you, or now they're more likely to feel like contributing back financially to the institution is something that they want to do because they've now had this feel-good moment with you in a different capacity. And you can see visually who those individuals are and think about how you might want to continue to engage them in other ways. All of this data is exportable, so you can pull it out and combine it with data from other systems. And I had one other thing, but now I can't remember what it was. And then the last thing I will just touch on, because we've seen it in the other communities, is this idea of chat. So this is a great place where the chat feature is really nice for this quick and casual conversation among students. So we see people are jumping in to do an interview and their interview is starting in 3 hours and they have a quick question that they need to ask. So they jump in here and they ask it and people jump in and give advice. Or I was asked to go do this internship and they're going to do the specific kind of interview with me. Does anybody have any advice? Nice places where they can go in and do that. So thinking about the complementary world of chat, quicker, easier, a little more transactional versus the conversations which are really contributing to this long-term knowledge base that all of your students can tap into. All right. I promised to keep it a little bit shorter today. So
I do have one more thing. If
yeah,
we have some time here. Our friends that have been with us the last 3 days have heard this 3 times. However, I'm excited to say that we have new names on the call today. And so can you tell us a little bit about implementation and ongoing support?
Yes, thank you. And I keep telling myself I'm going to talk about that before you ask, but you never forget. So that's good. Yes. So the implementation process is quite simple. I always say we help you with your community design. So we'll come to the table with a recommendation and then you can customize it from there. We do want to do that technical integration. So just getting connected with your tech team, but it's very standardized LTI, single sign-on, nothing, we don't have to build 1,700 hooks into your SIS system to make it work. So that process is quite lightweight. We'll train you up and then we'll arm you with a launch plan that you can use to communicate to your students that this resource exists, how to use it, and start to get them excited and engaged. End to end, that process can be as short as 2 weeks. Usually the sticking point is getting access to your tech team and just making sure that we get that done. So if they're available, that goes really quickly and really smoothly. Post implementation, though, you are assigned a designated customer support team. We are big believers in the idea that we are in this together. So if you look at all of our language, you'll see like we really do believe that community is required in all aspects of the work that we're doing. And that's no different than how we support you. So our customer success team will meet with you weekly or bi-weekly. They will be looking at your community with you to say, what is working? What's not working the way we thought it would be? What changes do we want to make? And they will stay with you through the duration of your relationship with us. So we are very committed to making sure that we understand what success looks like for you, that we are measuring that together, and that we are making the adjustments necessary to achieve those goals for you and for your students.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and wrap it up so that we can give everyone 15 minutes back in their
Awesome.
day.
And I apologize for anyone who came in just today, because I probably did like the lightest weight demo today of the platform. But I didn't want to repeat too many things. But you did get a pretty good overview of the different sections of the product, some of the capabilities. I think if you really are interested in building community at your institution or particularly career readiness spaces for your learners, the best thing to do is to sit down with one of the members of our team and really explain what it is that you're looking for. And we can really easily have, learn from you and then provide back to you a custom recommendation of how we think this would work best at your institution. So if you want to learn more, just drop your name and email into this poll area, this little quiz, and someone from our team will follow up just to learn more, kind of understand what you're looking for, and we can see if it's a good fit for you, if there's some things that we could do to help you be more successful in what you're trying to do. So the series is complete. Congratulations. Thank you, Danielle, for all of your amazing work on this. You did such a great job. I so appreciate you. But we do have one more webinar coming up on the 31st with our friends at University of North Texas. They have built more of a peer student success community, so a little bit of different example, but you can see some of the really interesting things they did and the huge improvement that they saw in student retention, almost 15% improvement in student retention after just one semester. So come learn about their magic sauce, what they did to achieve that, and we, how we can help you do that as well. And then would love to stay connected with everybody. Please feel free to email me at any time, connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'll be at the DTNL and Solar Conference next week. So if any of you are going to be there, please reach out and let me know. I'd love to just say hi in person. And otherwise, thank you for going on this journey with us. And I hope that you all have an absolutely amazing weekend.